All right. Good morning, everyone. Hopefully this will be short. It needs to be short. I have other things to do. However, I wanted to introduce a new topic to this channel. The channel has kind of a theme overall of global heating and climate change, and it's kind of veered from, well, this is what's happening to us, to more along the lines of, well, we know what's happening. Now let's talk about the implications of that. So my background is as a biologist, an educator, an engineer, a builder, and a software engineer. I picked up a lot of mathematics, a lot of history. I am a student of the human condition. I'm interested in what people are doing, why they're doing it, and where that took them. Okay. So all the time that I've been dealing with climate change as a topic, I've been able to pull from all the facets of my life. I am probably fairly well positioned to do that, as opposed to almost anybody else. I just happen to have the right skill set to tackle this in a meaningful way, meaning in a way that doesn't leave too many loose ends. I'm also a futurist. I aspire to being a writer. I haven't published anything. I've written a lot of stuff, and I'm kind of playing around with my writing style and my characters and some other things. So because my subject matter that I'm writing against, my characters that I'm writing against, is somewhat in the future, somewhat science fiction-y, somewhat technology, I kind of have a mindset that puts me just a little ways into the future, a little bit off the beaten path, not fantastic or, violating laws of physics, just a little bit out there. It makes it fun, right? To go a little bit out there and have some fun with it. So because I do that in my spare time, and I have this background that I already have, and now we have climate change, it makes it easy for me to tackle all the seemingly disconnected parts of this problem. I don't know that I'm all that good at it. I'm practicing, obviously, for a long time now. Go back and look at my earlier videos, and you'll see how that has progressed. I think I've progressed. I think I've gotten better. Maybe not. Maybe maybe I've hit a wall here. But the channel hasn't really had a theme other than climate change is a problem, and we're not really doing anything about it. Until I think this morning. I'll tell you what happened this morning in a moment. But my dilemma is that, and I alluded to this in some earlier videos just this week, that I'm not really interested anymore in the science of climate change and the atmospheric, physics of global heating. Yes, I'm interested, but I'm not reading the papers. I used to read the papers. I used to, look at the charts and study the numbers, and I really have a really strong background in this topic, an academic, professional background in this topic, because that's where my roots were as I came into it. I don't get my information from Facebook or InfoWars or Reddit or even CNN or Fox News or anywhere else. I kind of go to the sources. So I have a really strong background. At some point, it became really easy for me to just say, okay, see where this is headed. It's pretty obvious. Got enough data. Moving on. All right. So then the question was, moving on to what? And my wife and I talk about this all the time. She's still interested in the weather, interested in the data, the risks. And I think that most people will be. Most people will have that itch for a long time, maybe even forever. And that's probably very sensible. I mean, why wouldn't you be interested in the actual risks? Are there any risks in your community, your neighborhood? What are they? What can you do? What direction are the harms going to come from? And how are your neighbors going to react if they're not paying attention, for example? You're paying attention, so maybe you're a little bit ahead of the curve, but what if they're not and they get blindsided? So now you have community issues. So, understanding the risks, keeping your eye on the ball, and learning more about the physics so that you can kind of inform your assessment of the risks, keep things real, so to speak. It's a good thing to be doing. It is a good thing to be doing, but I'm not doing that anymore. Okay, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm a futurist. I'm an aspiring writer. I write fiction. I create characters. I create situations. I put those characters in situations and I find out what they would do. I enjoy doing it. So now I'm going to do that with you and all of this. All right. Why? Because this morning I we listen to the news or we read the headlines in the mornings and before we start our day. And two headlines came to my attention. Well, one of them was a headline, and one of them was a comment in an article. I'll give you the comment first. It was Umar Hake or Hawk. What he writes on Medium. I enjoy his work. He is a man of my own, designs. He thinks about the same sorts of things I think about. We don't always agree on what we consider to be the problems or how we talk about the problems or the solutions we offer, but it's comforting and refreshing to see someone with the same mindset that I have, because it's pretty uncommon. And but he did say something today, kind of as an off the cuff comment, that we are entering an age of chaos. And I wasn't listening that carefully, so I don't know what the rest of the sentence was about. But he was talking about, our predicament that we're in right now with regards to, politics, the rise of intolerance, climate change, climate refugees, and all the problems that are under each of those. And then he said, and we are entering an age of chaos. And that resonated with me, because I'm at this inflection point where I'm less interested in the day-to-day data and the scholarly papers, and I kind of get it now. I think all those scientists get it too, but this is their job, is to do this work and keep publishing data, and they're going to do that until the end of days, right? Until there's just no money, there's no equipment, there's no people to work with, there's no way to publish things. They're just going to keep doing what they do until the end of days. That's fine. Maybe that information will be useful to somebody, but I don't need it because I'm moving forward. So when he said in his comment that we're entering an age of chaos, I said, yes, that's right. That's right. That's the inflection point for me. I'm going into that now. I am going to adjust my focus away from the minutia, the data, the atoms, the molecules, and a little higher up the scale to the bigger picture. And that's where being a futurist comes into play. This is where I get to speculate a little bit. I'm not speculating about the data anymore. I'm looking at the trajectories, and this is a scientific process, just so you know. The trajectories that the data point to. There's a data point here and here and here and here and here and here and here. And you kind of think, I wonder if there's another data point there. And why would you think that? Well, because the ones you've been looking at roughly form sort of an arrow. I'm not going to say a line, because sometimes the data don't structurally on a chart form a line, okay? But the implications of the data kind of point as a vector in a certain direction. And maybe the vector early on, it points all different directions, and you kind of know where this is headed, all right, in brain space. Where is this headed? But slowly the vector starts to point, and it can still vary a little bit, but that doesn't really matter, does it? Because you can kind of see, oh, so that's the general direction this is headed. It's over there, or it's going up there, or it's going right here. You don't know, right? So with that in place, Umar said, okay, well, we're kind of heading into an age of chaos. I thought, yes, that's right. That vector, we are heading into something. And that thing over there, that cloudy, gray, ill-defined thing over there, he helped me put a label on it. The age of chaos. We can talk about chaos. I'll even do a video on what is chaos. I think we need a definition here. I've actually studied chaos quite a bit. If you're familiar with chaos theory, right? The mathematical chaos, chaotic systems. I'm a systems biologist. I'm interested in chaotic systems, and you should be too. There's a lot to discuss there. So maybe at some point I'll throw up a video on chaotic systems. I think it's cool. You are probably aware of the butterfly effect, as that is a component of chaotic systems. It is a component. Everything you've ever heard about the butterfly effect is incorrect. The reality of what the butterfly effect is much less interesting than everything you've ever heard about what people think the butterfly effect is. It has nothing to do with any of those things. You've never heard it correctly. The butterfly effect, as taken from chaos theory, which is an actual science, it's a field of study, it has definitions, methods, the whole thing. The butterfly effect and its relationship to chaos is not understood by anybody outside of that science. Okay, so let's try and clear that up, because the real importance of the butterfly effect in chaotic systems is actually critical to anything we're going to talk about here. So we are going to have to tackle that at some point. The second thing that happened today, while I was getting myself together, was it was just a headline, I guess, that some university or some group had done a peer-reviewed paper, published a peer-reviewed paper on how the global response to climate change can probably, now I'm paraphrasing, I wish I'd gone and looked it up, but I'm gonna wing it here, okay? That the global response to climate change suggests that we need a authoritarian form of government at essentially the global level. And you think the UN and the Security Council are authoritarian? Well, you're wrong. Okay, obviously they're not, because otherwise we wouldn't have this global crisis we can't deal with at all, right? Not even starting to take baby steps to dealing with. So that was the headline. It might be worth, I might look up that paper and take a look at it. But what I'm really doing here is I'm connecting these two dots. According to one thinker whose thought processes I respect, we are entering an age of chaos. Fine. According to another group of people who published a peer-reviewed paper, so this is now a very large project, has been seen by many, many people before I got to it. Authoritarian approaches may be necessary for the climate crisis. There's a lot to unpack there. I mean, there's a lot. So I think what I'm going to do, not today, because I have other things to do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to unpack all of that into a bunch of videos. I'm going to do something on chaos theory. I'm going to do something on initial conditions, the butterfly effect. I'm going to do something on the history of the failure of global governance. I'm going to do something on, I'm just rattling these off. I don't have a list I'm looking at here. Okay, I'm just coming up with a bunch of topics I think would be cool, helpful, and cool. I think I should do something on how the fear of centralized government is overblown and why it's overblown. And I will do something on the necessity going forward of centralized government. So this is outside what I've normally done, but I'm here to say that I have to have these discussions, and we need these tools in our toolbox. We have to unpack these conspiracies. We have to unpack all these loose definitions. We have to think about the history of how we got here. And then when we have all that stuff laid out, okay, then I think we can start connecting the dots. So for me, this is something I do quite easily. Like I said, I'm a futurist. I have a massive background in many, many topics. So for me to be a futurist is easy. It just kind of came naturally for me. I'm going to do that for you. Now, you can agree or disagree with the individual components of my thesis, which is kind of what it's going to be, where all this is headed. I'm going to be groping in the dark a little bit. I'll get new ideas from individuals, from the comments, from additional news sources as they come my way. And I'm going to start deliberately, like an antenna, like an aerial antenna, like a radio antenna. I'm going to start pulling down more and more and more information about where this is going. Because I think we have enough data in a kind of toolbox to assess that. I think we can. There was an extremely influential series of books written by well, no, I can't remember. Isaac Asimov, Ray Bradbury, called the Foundation series. And the Foundation series, when I read it, I was really impressed with that. Impressed meaning I thought it had a lot of great ideas, and I never put those ideas away. One of them, which isn't even fiction, is called psychohistorical analysis. And psychohistorical analysis was the idea, well, in practice, meaning the non-fictional component of it. Psychohistorical analysis, as I recollect, is the practice where, and it was really perfected during the First World War, I believe. It's the analysis of, I want to say communities. Really, it was nations, because these were nations at war. But let's generalize it to communities. Communities of individuals. You analyze their publicly available works. So, mostly newspapers, journals, magazines, anthologies, things that people collect together and say, this is important, we'll publish this as an anthology. Anything that they publish. So you don't have to go in there and set spies in the middle of them and listen on get the keyhole of their doors of their homes and peer in the windows. You don't have to do any of those things. You can simply read the stuff they read. And while you're reading it, if you're using those sources deliberately to understand what they're thinking, then, and even what they're likely to do, because, thoughts and anxieties lead to actions. So if you understand the human condition and you know what someone or a group of someone's is thinking, then given the history of human behavior, you can kind of from that project a little bit into the future, what they might do next. So psychohistorical analysis is a thing. It was perfected and developed during the First World War. It was, I believe, only perfected in the U.S. and England at the time, but I may be mistaken. Again, I'm sure there's a Wikipedia article on this. I should go read it, right? Do my homework. But in any case, the Allied nations in the First World War were the ones who decided to apply this, and it goes on to this day. I mean, do you seriously think that the CIA isn't reading newspapers and watching newscasts in countries of interest? As a matter of fact, the movie The Day of the Condor, which was based on a book. I can't tell you the name of the book is. I think it's different than that. But The Day of the Condor, which is Robert Redford, is all about some guy, a CIA analyst. He's not a spook. He's not a spy. He's not out there in a black trench coat listening at people's keyholes. He's an analyst. He sits in an office and he reads books. I think that's the plot. He reads books. That's all he reads. And of course, he's reading books in Red China, and he's reading books in Soviet Russia at the time, and he's reading books in even in his own country, right? What are people saying? And from that he comes up with analysis. And so in The Day of the Condor, this guy who's basically doing psychohistorical analysis, discovers something, and then the movie runs with it. So it's an interesting subplot. What he was reading is, of course, important to the movie, and what he came out of with is important to the movie, because it's why he ends up in hot water. But all I want to draw from it is that he was doing exactly what I'm talking about: psychohistorical analysis. So, there's enough data out there right now in the January 6th insurrection, climate change denial, the fossil fuel industry's propaganda, corporate takeover of America, the political divide in America, all the conference of the parties called COPs. We just had COP 26, complete failure. All the things published in the IPCC process are up to number 6 now, over about 30 years. So all this stuff, there's enough out there floating around that we can start piecing these things together. And the observation by Umar that we are entering an age of chaos resonated with me. I think we are. We're in it. It's early days. So these are tentative entries into the age of chaos, but we are absolutely there. I did a video, maybe more than one now, recently about the weather chaos. I did one that was subtitled Ice and Fire. Okay. It is chaotic. No one understands what's happening, except I understand precisely what's happening. And any scientist understands exactly what is happening. It's not chaotic to us, all right? But it appears chaotic to people. It represents this vast unknown. What is happening to us? What is going on? This is scary, right? It's misunderstood. We don't understand this, and we can't handle this. We can't grapple with this. And to someone like me, it's inevitable. So there's a difference between what's chaotic for you and what's chaotic for me. And there's a lot of stuff that would seem chaotic to the general populace that is not at all chaotic or misunderstood by the scientific community. We're way ahead on this. We will always be way ahead. There's not much about this that's a big surprise. Certainly not to me. If it's not a big surprise to me, then I'm sure there's a lot of people similar to me with my background that are in exactly the same boat. Yeah, it's not a surprise. Why would it be? Well, so I can share some of that here. And then the other thing is, in addition to, this age of chaos, is this age of authoritarianism. And I'm going to have to really unpack that. That sounds scary. It is scary, but it's not scary probably for the reasons you think. It's scary for a completely different set of reasons. And the scary part for me as a futurist is we might really screw it up. Not that it will happen, because I spoiler alerts, I think it will. But in the realm of notions that I call a controlled demolition, it might not happen in a controlled way. And we may veer real hard into an uncontrolled demolition if we don't get that part right. So that's going to be the theme of this. I'm not going to do any more with it today. I have other things to do, but as I organize my thoughts around this, I'll be on here, and the theme will be the age of chaos. And I think we're there. I think we are totally in it with both feet now, and we're headed into the deep water. We are being dragged, probably kicking and screaming reluctantly, into the deep water. And we're going to have to learn how to swim. So swim in chaos. I mean, there you go. There's your metaphor. We're going to have to learn to navigate and survive in a chaotic system. And the implications for that are really, really amazing. I'm really looking forward to this series. And who knows? Maybe some of these ideas will make their way into my fiction. In which case, they won't even be fiction, right? But all the same, that's where this is going. Subscribe to the channel, and I don't know how often I'm going to put these out. Maybe once a day, maybe every few days. I'll try to keep them short because it's going to be a lot to digest. And when I can't keep them short, basically when I'm trying to connect a bunch of dots, then it'll be longer format. But let's see how it works out, and buckle up. It's going to be a bumpy ride.